Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Federico Talks Watches. Today, I wanted to talk about something business related and personal, something you may find interesting or not, but I want to talk about the 3 times I lost the most amount of money as a watch dealer. 3 watches that I lost my pants on, and how that happened. Now, of course, before we get started, customary wristwatch check. Today I'm wearing my H. Moser Mayu Big Date, rose gold on a custom Aaron bespoke strap. Absolutely love it. Haven't worn this in a while, but I've got a cocktail party tonight, so I figured put this on the wrist starting now. And also, guys, don't forget to check out DelReyWatch.com. A bunch of new watches in stock, over 100 in the past 2 days, have been posted, but 3 highlights are the Omega Speedmaster Mark 40, super hot watch, haven't had one in stock for close to a year. The colorful dial, the functions, this makes it by far the most desirable Speedmaster automatic out there, and we finally have one back in. We also got in a Lange 1 in white gold. You see a ton in yellow, a few in rose. White is the rarest, and this Lange 1 in white gold is an absolute beauty. And a first for Del Rey Watch, we got our first Sartori Billard Bespoke watch, a brand you may have heard me speak about in the past. I absolutely love Sartori Billard, a small independent brand, very, very cool design language. Pretty long wait list, but you can get one at Del Rey Watch today. All this and more at DelReyWatch.com, the best place for a watch geek to buy a watch. Link in the description below. So yeah, guys, I'm going to start by saying that being a watch dealer is great. I mean, I love it. Watches is the only thing I know in my adult life as far as career-wise. And you know, I wouldn't trade being a watch dealer for the world, but that is to say, it does come with risk, and it can be hard. And if you don't know what you're doing, which I'm going to show you in a second, you can lose a ton of money. Now, luckily, it hasn't happened too many times in my career, or obviously I wouldn't still be doing it, but these are the 3 that stand out. Some of them were my fault. Well, all of them are ultimately my fault, but some are more at fault than others. And I'm going to start with lost the least amount of money to lost the most amount of money. The first one is a Ulysse Nardin Tourbillon. A beautiful watch. Tourbillons are awesome. And I bought it from another dealer thinking, yeah, this is a pretty good price. I mean, I can make a profit off this. Of course, that's what I thought. That's why I bought it. Unfortunately, by the time I bought it, a few things had happened. So the first thing is I paid too much for it. I didn't bake in enough margin to be able to discount it and so forth. Then the second thing is we got the Russian sanctions, which you might think, well, what does that have to do with a UN tourbillon? Ulysse Nardin's biggest market is Russia, and while I'm not saying I would have sold it and shipped it to Russia before the sanctions, a lot of the buyers for Ulysse Nardin happen to be Russians, even in America. I've sold a lot of Ulysse Nardin, and it's predominantly to Russian. Well, all of a sudden, the Russian market is gone. People outside of Russia, but who were Russian, were holding on to their money, not wanting to spend. And of course, people in Russia couldn't spend their money because of the sanctions. So that didn't help. And the fact that I overpaid, I took about a $4,000 loss on this one single watch, which ultimately I'm not too mad about because I think it could have been a lot worse. It sat around in inventory for a year, not making me any money, and then I lost $4,000 on it. Probably more than that if you consider the opportunity cost, but it is what it is. The second watch is also a Ulysse Nardin. As you can see, there is a pattern here. This happened in my first 3 months in business, and this is the one I take, well, as I said, I'm responsible for all these losses, but this is the one that how was I going to know what was going to happen? Well, it was a Ulysse Nardin executive dual time that I sold for about $5,000. So how did I lose? I lost $4,000 on the tourbillon. How did I lose more than $4,000 on a watch that I sold for $5,000? This is a great question. This watch is a total piece of shit. The big date dual time function is much more complicated than expected, especially considering it's on a base at a movement. Anyway, I sell it to a customer. Customer's very happy. A couple months later, he tells me the big date is kind of out of sync, and I say, "Well, listen, it's covered under our warranty. Send it back to us." He sends it back. Lost a few bucks on shipping, no big deal. I give it to a watchmaker, my watchmaker, and he couldn't work on it. Basically, what I was told, and I wish I had pictures to show you, is the dual time function is kind of pinned to the base plate of the movement. And he was scared that if he pried too much, we would break that part, and then it has to go to Ulysse Nardin for service because we can't get Ulysse Nardin module movement parts. We can get all the ATA parts, but we can't get the specific movement parts. I told him to try anyway. He tried. He did not break it. Okay, that's great. But he could not fix it. I send it out to another watchmaker. It was there for 3 months. He fixed it. Great. Cost me about $1,200 plus the hourly rate of my first watchmaker. But, whatever, customer's happy. We have a warranty. It is what it is. Fixed it, send it back to the customer. Customer's happy. About a month later, the same problem. It goes out of sync. I get it back. I give it to the original, the watchmaker that I paid $1,200 for. And he said, listen, it's just the way it works. There's slop in the big date. It is what it is. You have to send it to Ulysse Nardin. Okay. I ship it to Ulysse Nardin in Florida. It's about $1,000 for service. I get it back about 3 months later. Paid $1,000, so now I'm at $2,200 plus my original watchmaking fee. Let's call it a touch under $3,000 plus the shipping. Let's just call it $3,000. I get it back, and it shows up fully serviced with still slop in the big date. I call Ulysse Nardin, and I said it's completely unacceptable. They said it's within their tolerances. I tried to explain that to the customer. The customer wasn't having it. I just want to be done with this, and I want the customer to be happy, and I never want to see this watch again. I send it back to Ulysse Nardin, and I pay them to replace the entire date module. And I send it back to the customer with a warranty card from Ulysse Nardin, and I tell them, listen, it's under warranty with UN now. You can deal with them directly. They replaced all this stuff. So he was happy. At the end of the day, it cost me about $5,000 all in all for a watch. It cost me about $5,000 for a watch that was basically that price. What did I learn? I learned I will never buy or sell another Ulysse Nardin executive dual time ever again. Then third, and the one where I lost $12,800 on, was a vintage Rolex President with a stone dial that I bought at auction. Now, this was one of the few times I've gone to auction. I've since realized auction is not worth the trouble, especially if you can't physically go to the viewing days and see it in person. Auction houses have a lot of legal mumbo jumbo in their fine print, which basically says they can sell you anything they want for the most part, and they're not legally liable to take it back or anything like that. This is quite easy. I saw a lot of pictures on it. It was a well-known auction house. I'm not going to tell you who it was because I don't want to get into any legal issues. I bought the patterned stone dial Rolex President. I got it in. It looked fine. It looked great. Then during photography under the macro lens, we noticed the stone dial is cracked. Now, the stone dial is what makes this watch valuable, and a cracked stone dial is worth a fraction of a normal stone dial. I reach out to the auction house. Of course, they were as helpful as you might imagine. They're about as useful as a cock-flavored lollipop. And, you know, I then thought to myself, well, you can barely see this with the naked eye. Maybe you can't notice. Yeah, I'm not really willing to risk my reputation on that. I had to sell the mint stone, the watch I bought with a mint stone dial. I had to sell it, disclosing the cracked dial, just because, you know, God forbid, you know, it comes back to me and I have to deal with it, and the whole dishonesty thing, it catches up to you in the long run. So I sold it, took a $12,800 loss, and decided I would never buy another stone dial again unless I could inspect it and loop it myself. I've lost a lot more money in the watch industry than just these 3 times, but these 3 were the biggest amounts in one sitting. Anyway, guys, I hope you found my pain enjoyable. I've since gotten over it with a lot of therapy, but it is what it is. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any more content. And of course, I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.